Dr. Maya had been living with the most unusual roommate for 6 months now. When the government first approached her about housing an alien visitor, she thought they were joking. But here she was, sharing her small apartment with Zix, a 7-foot-tall being from another planet who looked like they were made of blue glass and starlight. Zix had been surprisingly easy to live with. They were quiet, clean, and endlessly curious about everything humans did. They spent hours watching cooking shows, trying to understand why humans enjoyed watching other humans prepare food they couldn't taste through the screen. They collected bottle caps, convinced that these small metal circles held some deep cultural significance. They even learned to make coffee, though they didn't drink it themselves. Maya worked as a biology professor at the local university. Most evenings, she would come home tired from teaching eager college students about the wonders of life science. She would spread her papers across the kitchen table, grading tests and assignments while Zix sat nearby, usually absorbed in some human book or television program. On this particular Tuesday evening, Maya was marking papers about plant reproduction when she noticed Zix approaching with that familiar look of deep concentration. Their large, pearl-like eyes held a mixture of curiosity and confusion that Maya had come to recognize as the prelude to a very interesting question. "Maya, friend," Zix said in their musical voice that always reminded Maya of wind chimes. "I have been studying your human behaviors for many months now. I watch your entertainment programs, I read your books, I observe people in the park. But there is something that puzzles me greatly." Maya looked up from her papers, already sensing this was going to be one of those conversations. Zix had previously asked her to explain why humans kept plants inside their homes when plants belonged outside, why people cried at movies when they knew the stories weren't real, and why humans said, "How are you?" when they didn't actually want a detailed health report. "What's puzzling you this time?" Maya asked, setting down her red pen. Zix moved closer, their tall frame casting interesting shadows in the lamplight. "I have been studying this concept you humans call reproduction. In my observations of your scientific texts, your stories, your songs, and your daily conversations, this topic appears frequently. But I am confused because it seems to be both a biological necessity and something that creates very strong emotions." Maya felt her cheeks warm up. Of all the questions Zix could have asked, this was definitely not one she had prepared for. "You see," Zix continued, completely unaware of Maya's discomfort, "my people reproduce through a process called cellular harmonization. When two of us decide to create offspring, we simply join our energy fields and split into 3 beings. It takes about 6 hours, it's completely painless, and we do it maybe once every 100 years when our population needs to grow. It's very practical and efficient." Maya tried to imagine such a clinical approach to creating new life. "That sounds very straightforward." "Exactly." Zix's eyes brightened. "But human reproduction appears to be completely different. I have observed that you form these pair bonds that last for years, sometimes decades. You create elaborate ceremonies around these bonds. You write poetry about them. You make movies about them. You seem to experience intense joy and sometimes intense sadness related to these connections." Maya nodded slowly, realizing she was about to attempt explaining one of humanity's most complex experiences to someone whose species treated reproduction like a scheduled business meeting. "I have been reading your biology textbooks," Zix continued, producing a stack of Maya's old college books. "The basic mechanics are clear enough, but I cannot understand why this biological function creates such powerful emotional responses in humans. Why do you have courtship rituals? Why do you write love songs? Why do some humans choose not to reproduce at all, while others seem to make it the center of their entire existence?" Maya looked at her alien roommate and saw genuine scientific curiosity in their expression. This wasn't about anything inappropriate or uncomfortable. Zix was simply trying to understand a fundamental aspect of human nature that was completely foreign to their own experience. "It's complicated," Maya said, finally. "For humans, reproduction isn't just about making babies. It's connected to our deepest emotions, our need for connection, our desire to form meaningful relationships with other people." "But why?" Zix asked. "From an evolutionary standpoint, it seems unnecessarily complicated. My species has survived for millions of years with our efficient system. Why did humans develop such complex emotional attachments to a biological process? Maya thought about how to explain concepts like love, attraction, and intimacy to someone who had never experienced them. Well, for humans, the process of creating new life is usually connected to forming deep emotional bonds with another person. We don't just reproduce to continue our species. We do it as an expression of connection, commitment, and care for another person. So the biological function serves multiple purposes. Zix mused, making notes in their strange, flowing handwriting. Species continuation, emotional bonding, and social connection. Exactly, Maya said, feeling more comfortable as the conversation took on a more academic tone. And because it's so connected to our emotions, it influences our art, our culture, our entire social structure. Zix was quiet for a moment, processing this information. I think I need to study this more deeply, they said finally. This emotional component of human reproduction may be the key to understanding many behaviors I have observed, but could not explain. Maya felt a small flutter of concern. What kind of studying are you thinking about? I believe I need to understand not just the biology but the social and emotional aspects as well, Zix replied. I want to observe how humans form these pair bonds. I want to understand what you call attraction and chemistry. I want to comprehend why humans create such elaborate courtship rituals. Zix, Maya said carefully. Studying human relationships isn't like studying plant biology. People's feelings are involved. It's not just data to be collected and analyzed. But Zix was already lost in thought, their mind clearly working on this new puzzle. Perhaps I could observe humans in their natural social environments. I could analyze courtship behaviors, study relationship formation, maybe even what? Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Maybe even attempt to experience these emotions myself, Zix said quietly. For complete understanding, sometimes one must participate in the phenomenon being studied. Maya stared at her alien roommate, realizing that Zix's innocent question had just launched them both into what was likely to be a very interesting and potentially complicated journey of discovery. She had a feeling that the next few weeks were going to be unlike anything she had experienced in her 6 months of living with an extraterrestrial being. Zix, she said finally, I think we need to talk about this a lot more before you start any kind of research project. But Zix was already gathering up the biology books, their mind clearly racing with possibilities. Maya watched them go, wondering what exactly she had just gotten herself into. The next morning, Maya woke up to find her entire collection of biology textbooks stacked neatly on the kitchen table. Zix sat surrounded by the books, several notebooks, and what appeared to be a carefully organized research station complete with colored pens and sticky notes. Good morning, Maya friend, Zix said without looking up from a thick textbook about human anatomy. I have been studying since you went to sleep. These books are fascinating, but they raise more questions than they answer. Maya poured herself coffee and sat down across from her alien roommate. How long have you been awake? My species requires only 2 hours of rest per day, Zix replied, still focused on the book. I have had plenty of time to begin my research. I have read 12 of your textbooks and taken 43 pages of notes. Maya looked at the notebooks filled with Zix's flowing handwriting. The alien had always been a fast learner, but this was impressive even for them. What have you learned so far? Zix finally looked up, their large eyes bright with excitement. The biological mechanisms are quite straightforward. Cell division, genetic combination, embryonic development. These processes exist throughout the galaxy in various forms. What puzzles me are the emotional and social components that seem unique to humans, such as, for example, Zix said, flipping through their notes. I have learned that humans form what you call romantic relationships, but these relationships serve purposes beyond reproduction. Many human couples never reproduce at all, yet they maintain these bonds for decades. Some humans reproduce without forming long-term relationships. The system appears to be incredibly flexible and individualized. Maya nodded, sipping her coffee. That's true. For humans, romantic relationships and reproduction are connected but separate things. People can have one without the other, This is where I become confused, Zix continued. I have been reading your literature and watching your films. Humans seem to experience intense emotions around these relationships. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, sometimes all within the same story. Why do humans willingly engage in experiences that can cause such emotional extremes? Maya thought about how to explain something that felt as natural to her as breathing. Because the positive emotions are worth the risk of negative ones. When humans connect deeply with another person, it creates feelings of happiness, security, and fulfillment that are among the most powerful experiences we can have. But how do humans choose these partners? Zix asked, pulling out another notebook. I have been studying what you call dating and courtship. It appears to be a complex evaluation process where humans assess compatibility through shared activities, conversation, and physical proximity. Yet many of these relationships end unsuccessfully. The system seems highly inefficient. Maya laughed. Well, when you put it like that, it does sound pretty inefficient. But it's not really a system designed for efficiency. It's more about finding someone who makes you happy, someone you enjoy spending time with, someone who understands you. Ah, Zix said, making more notes. So the goal is not optimal genetic combination or practical partnership, but emotional satisfaction. Exactly. Though practical compatibility helps too. Over the next few days, Zix threw themselves into their research with the same intensity they had once applied to studying human cooking shows. They watched romantic movies with scientific precision, pausing frequently to ask Maya questions about character motivations and plot developments. Why does the female protagonist choose the male who treats her poorly over the one who is kind to her? Zix asked during one particularly dramatic film. She doesn't choose the one who treats her poorly, Maya explained. She realizes that the seemingly perfect guy isn't actually right for her, and the one she thought was wrong for her actually understands her better. But how can she know this? What evidence does she use to make this determination? Maya paused the movie and turned to face her alien roommate. Zix's human attraction isn't based on logical evidence. It's based on feelings, instincts, chemistry, things that can't be measured or calculated. Chemistry? Zix's eyes widened. You mean chemical reactions between individuals? This is something I can study scientifically. Not exactly, Maya said, quickly. It's more like Ma when two people meet and there's an immediate connection, an instant comfort or excitement. We call it chemistry, but it's not literal chemistry. Then what is it? Maya struggled to find words for something she had never had to explain before. It's like, have you ever heard a piece of music that just felt right to you? That made you want to keep listening even though you couldn't explain why? Zix nodded slowly. Yes, there is a human composer named Bach whose mathematical precision appeals to me, and another named Chopin whose emotional expression I find moving, though I cannot explain why. That's chemistry, Maya said. It's when two people just feel right together, even if they can't explain why. So human mate selection is based on subjective emotional responses rather than objective compatibility assessments, Zix concluded, scribbling in their notebook. You make it sound so clinical, Maya said. But yes, essentially. This explains why human courtship rituals are so varied and unpredictable, Zix continued. Each individual must discover what creates these positive emotional responses for them personally. Right. What attracts one person might not attract another at all. Zix spent the rest of the week conducting what they called observational field research. They sat in parks, coffee shops, and restaurants watching couples interact and taking detailed notes about human behavior. Maya received several phone calls from friends who had spotted a tall, blue figure staring intently at them during romantic dinners. Zix, Maya said one evening. You can't just stare at people on dates, it makes them uncomfortable. But I am learning so much, Zix protested. I have observed 17 different courtship behaviors just today. Did you know that humans often share food from each other's plates as a bonding ritual? And they make deliberate eye contact while speaking, which seems to create emotional connection. Those are normal things people do when they like each other, Maya said. But they probably don't want to be studied like specimens in a laboratory. I suppose you are correct, Zix said thoughtfully. Perhaps I need to find a way to observe these behaviors in a more natural setting. Maya felt a familiar flutter of concern. What are you thinking? I believe I need to experience human social interaction firsthand, Zix said. To truly understand how humans form romantic connections, I may need to participate in the process myself. Zix, Maya said slowly. Are you talking about dating? I am talking about scientific research, Zix replied, though I suppose you could call it dating. Maya stared at her alien roommate, realizing that Zix's academic approach to understanding human relationships was about to become much more complicated. She wasn't sure whether to be excited or terrified about what her curious alien friend might do next. We definitely need to talk about this more, she said finally. But Zix was already back to their books, their mind clearly working on the next phase of their research project. Maya came home from work on Friday to find Zix sitting on the couch with a notebook, intensely focused on a romantic comedy playing on the television. The alien had watched the same movie 3 times that week, and Maya was starting to worry about their research methods. Zix, what are you doing? Maya asked, dropping her bag by the door. I am conducting what I call cultural immersion research, Zix replied without taking their eyes off the screen. I have discovered that human entertainment provides valuable insights into your social behaviors and relationship expectations. On the screen, the main characters were having an argument in the rain, both of them clearly in love but too stubborn to admit it. Maya had seen this scene dozens of times in different movies. But I remain confused by many of the patterns I observe, Zix continued, pausing the movie. For example, in this film, the 2 protagonists spend 97 minutes avoiding honest communication about their feelings. They create unnecessary obstacles and misunderstandings when a simple conversation would resolve their conflicts immediately. Why do humans do this? Maya sat down next to her alien roommate. Well, sometimes people are afraid of being hurt or rejected. It's easier to avoid difficult conversations than risk having your feelings hurt. But this approach guarantees emotional suffering, Zix said, pointing at the screen. Both characters are clearly distressed by their situation. The logical solution would be direct communication. Humans aren't always logical when it comes to emotions, Maya explained. Fear and uncertainty can make people act in ways that don't make sense from the outside. Zix made notes in their notebook. So emotional decision-making often contradicts rational thought processes. This explains much of what I have observed. Over the next few days, Zix expanded their research beyond movies. They began studying what they called courtship rituals in natural settings, which mostly involved visiting places where young people gathered and observing their interactions. Maya received a concerning phone call Tuesday afternoon. Maya, this is Officer Chen from the Park District, the voice said. We've had several reports about a tall individual taking notes and staring at couples in Memorial Park. The description matches your unusual roommate. Could you have a word with them? Maya sighed. I'll talk to them right away. That evening, Maya found Zix organizing their research notes at the kitchen table. They had filled 4 notebooks with observations about human social behavior. Zix, we need to discuss your research methods, Maya said gently. People are getting uncomfortable when you stare at them and take notes. But I am learning so much, Zix protested. Did you know that humans have complex nonverbal communication patterns? I have identified 23 different types of smiles, each conveying different emotional states, and the way couples mirror each other's body language appears to strengthen their emotional connection. Those are interesting observations, Maya said. But you're making people nervous. They don't want to feel like they're being studied. I do not understand, Zix said. Humans observe each other constantly. I see them watching other couples, commenting on relationships, discussing their friends' romantic situations. How is my observation different? Maya thought about how to explain the difference between casual people watching and scientific analysis. When humans observe each other, it's usually casual and brief. You're staring intensely and taking detailed notes. It feels invasive. Ah, Zix said, making another note. So there are social protocols around observation behavior. Casual observation is acceptable. But systematic study requires permission. Exactly. This creates a research problem, Zix mused. How can I study natural human behavior if my presence alters that behavior? Maybe you need to find a different approach, Maya suggested. The next day, Zix announced they had found a solution. I have been invited to a social gathering, they said proudly. Your colleague Professor Martinez mentioned a party at his house this weekend. I believe this will provide an excellent opportunity for participant observation. Maya nearly choked on her coffee. Zix, you can't go to a party just to study people. That's not how parties work. But it is perfect, Zix insisted. A natural social environment where humans engage in courtship behaviors while consuming food and beverages. I can observe without appearing suspicious because I will be a participant rather than an outside observer. But people go to parties to have fun and socialize, not to be research subjects. I understand, Zix said. I will participate in the fun and socializing while simultaneously conducting my research. It is what you humans call multitasking. Maya looked at her alien roommate's eager expression and realized there was no talking them out of this plan. Okay, but we need to establish some ground rules. You cannot tell people you're studying them. You cannot take notes during the party, and you need to try to actually enjoy yourself, not just analyze everything. Agreed, Zix said immediately, though I may need guidance on appropriate party behavior. Saturday evening arrived, and Maya spent an hour helping Zix prepare for their first human social gathering. They practiced small talk, discussed appropriate topics of conversation, and worked on what Maya called casual observation versus scientific staring. Remember, Maya said as they walked to Professor Martinez's house, the goal is to participate, not just observe. Try to have actual conversations with people. I understand, Zix replied. Engage in reciprocal social interaction while gathering data on human courtship behaviors. Maya winced. Don't think of it as gathering data. Think of it as making friends. The party was already in full swing when they arrived. Professor Martinez greeted them warmly and introduced Zix to several other guests as Maya's international exchange student. It wasn't entirely untrue, Maya reasoned. At first, things went surprisingly well. Zix's unusual appearance, tall, pale, with striking features, attracted curious attention rather than suspicion. Several people approached them with friendly questions about their background. I am from very far away, Zix would say truthfully. I am here to study human culture and behavior. Oh, are you an anthropology student? A graduate student named Alex asked. Something like that, Zix replied. Maya watched nervously as Zix navigated their first human party. They seemed to be doing well, engaging in conversations and even laughing at jokes they didn't entirely understand. But Maya could see the analytical gleam in their eyes as they observed the interactions around them. Things started to go sideways, about an hour into the party. So what exactly are you studying about human culture? Asked Riley, a psychology student who had been chatting with Zix for several minutes. I am particularly interested in your mating rituals and relationship formation patterns, Zix replied with complete honesty. The conversation around them gradually went quiet. You're what now? Riley asked. Human courtship behaviors, Zix continued, oblivious to the growing silence. For instance, I have noticed that alcohol consumption appears to reduce social inhibitions, presumably to facilitate romantic connections. But this seems counterproductive as it impairs judgment regarding compatibility assessment. Maya rushed over, but it was too late. Zix had attracted the attention of half the party. Are you studying us right now? Someone asked. Of course, Zix replied. This is an excellent opportunity to observe natural social behaviors. Did you know that humans form small conversational clusters that mirror their relationship preferences? And the music volume is calibrated to encourage closer physical proximity for communication? Maya grabbed Zix's arm. Maybe we should get some fresh air, she suggested quickly. But something unexpected happened. Instead of being offended, several people seemed genuinely intrigued by Zix's unique perspective on human behavior. That's actually really interesting, said Jordan, a sociology major. I never thought about parties as social experiments, but you're kind of right. Tell me more about these relationship formation patterns, added Casey, who was working on a thesis about modern dating culture. Maya watched in amazement as Zix's scientific approach to understanding human relationships actually started meaningful conversations with the very people they were trying to study. It wasn't going according to anyone's plan, but it was definitely going somewhere interesting. The party had taken an unexpected turn. What started as Zix's awkward attempt at studying human social behavior had somehow evolved into genuine conversations with curious graduate students who found the aliens' perspective fascinating rather than weird. Maya watched from across the room as Zix sat surrounded by a small group of people, all listening intently as the alien explained their observations about human relationship patterns. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Zix seemed to be connecting with humans on a level beyond simple curiosity. So you're saying that humans use shared activities as a way to test compatibility? Asked Jordan, the sociology student leaning forward with interest. Precisely, Zix replied, their confidence growing. I have observed that humans rarely engage in direct compatibility assessment. Instead, you participate in activities together, sharing meals, watching entertainment, walking in parks, and evaluate emotional responses to these shared experiences. That's actually brilliant, said Casey, who had been studying modern dating culture. You're describing the psychology behind dating without all the academic jargon. But I remain puzzled by one aspect, Zix continued. Humans seem to experience what you call chemistry, an immediate emotional connection that appears to override logical compatibility factors. How does this phenomenon work? The group exchanged glances. Maya could see them trying to figure out how to explain attraction to someone who had never experienced it. It's hard to describe, Jordan said finally. It's like when you meet someone and there's just an instant spark. You feel drawn to them without really knowing why. A spark? Zix asked, making mental notes. This is a metaphorical description, correct? Not actual electrical activity? Everyone laughed, and Maya noticed that Zix seemed pleased to have amused them, even if they didn't fully understand why their question was funny. It's more like an instant comfort, Casey added, like you've known someone much longer than you actually have. Or sometimes it's excitement. Your heart beats faster, you feel more alert when they're around. Zix's large eyes widened with interest. These are physiological responses? Measurable changes in heart rate and neural activity? Well, yes, but that's not really the point, said Riley, the psychology student. The point is how it makes you feel emotionally. I think I need to understand this chemistry phenomenon better, Zix said thoughtfully. Perhaps through direct observation or experimentation. Maya felt a familiar flutter of concern. She started to move toward the group, but Professor Martinez intercepted her. Your friend is quite remarkable, he said. I've never seen students so engaged in discussing social psychology. Where did you say they were from again? Very far away, Maya replied, keeping one eye on Zix's conversation. Meanwhile, the discussion around Zix had taken an interesting turn. Alex, who had been quiet for most of the conversation, suddenly spoke up. You know, if you really want to understand human connections, maybe you should try experiencing them instead of just studying them. What do you mean? Zix asked. I mean actually spending time with people as friends, not research subjects, Alex explained. Getting to know individuals instead of analyzing group behaviors. That is an intriguing suggestion, Zix said. A participant observation approach rather than external analysis. Exactly. Though I wouldn't call it that, Alex laughed. I'd just call it making friends. Over the next hour, something remarkable happened. The group of students continued talking with Zix, but the conversation gradually shifted from academic discussion to genuine social interaction. They shared stories, asked about Zix's background, and included the alien in their jokes and observations about the party. Maya watched as Zix began to relax in a way she had never seen before. The alien's usual formal posture softened, and they started responding to humor with natural laughter, rather than analytical curiosity about why something was funny. You know, Jordan said during a lull in conversation, you should come to the coffee shop with us sometime. We meet there every Tuesday to complain about our thesis projects. I would like that, Zix replied, and Maya could hear genuine warmth in their voice. And there's a movie night at my place next Friday, Casey added. Nothing scientific about it, just bad horror movies and too much popcorn. I enjoy your human films, Zix said, though I may ask questions during the movie. Everyone asks questions. During horror movies, Riley laughed. That's half the fun. As the evening wound down, Maya noticed that both Alex and Casey had given Zix their phone numbers, not for research purposes, but as genuine offers of friendship. Walking home, Zix was unusually quiet. Maya glanced at her alien roommate, trying to read their expression. How do you feel about tonight? Maya asked. I am processing, Zix replied slowly. The evening did not proceed according to my research plan. But I believe I learned more about human relationships than all my previous observations combined, Zix said. When those individuals invited me to join their activities, I experienced something unexpected. What was that? Pleasure. Not the satisfaction of acquiring new data, but genuine enjoyment of their company. And when they expressed interest in spending more time with me, I felt... Zix paused, searching for words. Warm. As if my internal temperature had increased, though I know this is not literally true. Maya smiled. Those sound like feelings, Zix? Happiness, affection, maybe the beginning of friendship? Yes, Zix said thoughtfully. I think you are correct. But this creates a new problem for my research. What kind of problem? If I am developing emotional connections with my research subjects, can I still study them objectively? Zix asked. And more importantly, do I want to? Maya looked at her alien roommate with new understanding. Maybe the point isn't to study human relationships from the outside anymore. Maybe it's time to experience them from the inside. But that would mean... Zix stopped walking, their expression shifting to something almost like wonder. That would mean allowing myself to feel what humans feel, to form the emotional bonds I have been analyzing. Would that be so terrible? Zix considered this for a long moment. No, they said finally. I think it might be wonderful. But it would also mean that I am no longer simply an observer of human culture. I would be participating in it. Is that what you want? I think, Zix said slowly, that it might be exactly what I want, though I am not certain I know how to proceed. Maya laughed. Zix, nobody knows how to proceed when it comes to relationships. That's part of what makes them interesting. As they reached their apartment, Zix paused at the door. Maya, I believe my research has entered a new phase, one that requires much less analysis and much more courage. Courage? To allow myself, to feel without understanding, to connect without controlling the outcome, to be vulnerable in the way that humans are vulnerable when they care about each other. Maya looked at her alien roommate and realized that Zix's journey to understand human reproduction had led them somewhere entirely unexpected, toward their own emotional awakening and the possibility of genuine human connection. I think that sounds like a beautiful experiment, Maya said softly. Yes, Zix agreed, though I suspect the results will be far more complex than anything I could have predicted. The weeks following the party brought changes that Maya had never expected. Zix's research notebook sat gathering dust on the kitchen table, replaced by text messages, coffee dates, and what appeared to be the alien's first experience with human friendship. Every Tuesday, Zix would return from the coffee shop meetings with stories about thesis struggles, professor complaints, and inside jokes that Maya didn't quite understand. On Fridays, they would head out for movie nights, usually coming home with opinions about special effects and plot holes that their new friends found endlessly entertaining. Jordan says I have an unusual perspective on character development, Zix announced one evening, sitting down with what had become their nightly cup of tea. Apparently, my analysis of why the protagonist made poor decisions was both accurate and hilarious. Maya smiled, watching her alien roommate's growing comfort with human social dynamics. You're fitting in well. Yes, Zix said thoughtfully, though I am beginning to realize that fitting in was never really the goal of my research. What do you mean? I came here to study human reproduction and relationship formation, Zix explained. But somewhere along the way, I stopped studying and started experiencing, and now I find myself in a situation I did not anticipate. Maya set down her own tea, sensing that something important was coming. What kind of situation? I believe I have developed what humans call feelings for two of my new friends, Zix said quietly. Alex and Casey have both expressed interest in spending individual time with me, and I find myself conflicted. Maya felt a mixture of excitement and concern. Conflicted how? When I am with Alex, I experience the physiological responses I read about in my research. Increased heart rate, heightened awareness, a desire to continue our interactions indefinitely. But I experience similar responses with Casey. This creates a problem I am not equipped to solve. Zix, Maya said gently, I think you're describing attraction, real attraction, not just academic curiosity about it. Yes, Zix agreed, but my species does not experience competing attractions. When we choose a partner for cellular harmonization, the selection is logical and mutual. We do not have multiple options or emotional complications. Humans do, though. It's normal to be attracted to more than one person, especially when you're just starting to understand your own feelings. Zix looked troubled. But both Alex and Casey believe they are developing exclusive connections with me. Alex invited me to a concert next weekend, and Casey suggested we attend a museum exhibition together. I said yes to both invitations before. I realized this might be inappropriate. Maya tried not to smile at the complexity of her alien roommate's first venture into human dating. Did you explain to either of them that you're also spending time with the other? No, Zix said. I did not realize I was supposed to. In my observations of human courtship, I focused on the formation of connections, not the protocols for managing multiple potential connections simultaneously. Well, honesty is usually the best policy, Maya said. You need to talk to both of them. But what if they no longer wish to spend time with me? What if my inexperience with human emotions has created a situation that cannot be resolved positively? For the first time since meeting Zix, Maya heard genuine vulnerability in their voice. The alien who had approached human relationships as a fascinating research project was now experiencing the uncertainty and fear that came with real emotional investment. Zix, Maya said softly. That's the risk that comes with caring about people. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't, but the alternative is never connecting with anyone at all. Is this what humans call heartbreak? Zix asked. This fear of losing something valuable that you have only recently discovered you possess? Part of it, Maya replied. But you haven't lost anything yet. You just need to be honest about where you are in this process. The next day, Zix took Maya's advice and arranged to meet with both Alex and Casey separately. They spent the morning rehearsing what they wanted to say, pacing around the apartment and practicing different ways to explain their situation. I will tell them that I am new to human relationships and still learning how they work, Zix decided. I will explain that I value both friendships highly and do not wish to cause harm through my inexperience. That sounds good, Maya said. Just be yourself and be honest. That evening, Zix returned home looking thoughtful but not devastated, which Maya took as a positive sign. How did it go? She asked. Better than I anticipated, Zix replied, settling into their usual spot on the couch. Alex was understanding about my situation. They said they appreciated my honesty and that they would like to continue spending time together, but without romantic expectations while I figure out my feelings. That's very mature of them. Casey had a similar response, though they added that they found my approach to relationships refreshingly honest compared to typical human dating behavior. Zix paused. I think I may have accidentally demonstrated that direct communication is more effective than the complicated strategies I observed in my research. Maya laughed. Sometimes the obvious solution really is the best one. But this experience has taught me something important, Zix continued. I began this research believing that human reproduction and relationship formation were unnecessarily complex. I thought my species' efficient approach was superior. And now, Now I understand that the complexity is not a flaw in the system. It is the entire point, Zix said. Humans do not form relationships simply to reproduce or even to find compatible partners. You form relationships to experience connection, growth, vulnerability, and love. The uncertainty and emotional risk are part of what makes these connections meaningful. That's a pretty profound realization. Yes. And it has led me to another realization, Zix said, their voice taking on a new quality Maya had never heard before. I no longer wish to study human relationships from the outside. I want to experience them fully with all their complications and uncertainties. What does that mean for your research? I think my research is complete, Zix said, not because I have learned everything there is to know about human relationships, but because I have learned that understanding them requires living them, not analyzing them. Maya looked at her alien roommate with new respect. So, what happens? Now I continue to build friendships with Alex and Casey and the others. I allow myself to feel whatever emotions arise without trying to categorize or control them. I accept that I may experience heartbreak, confusion, and uncertainty because these are part of the human experience I came here to understand. And, if your government asks about your findings? Zix smiled, an expression that had become much more natural over the past few weeks. I will tell them that human reproduction cannot be understood without understanding human emotion, and human emotion cannot be understood without experiencing it personally. I will recommend that any future cultural exchange programs focus on participation rather than observation. Do you think they'll understand? Probably not, Zix admitted. But that is acceptable. Some discoveries can only be made individually. Maya and Zix sat together in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky outside their window. Maya, Zix said finally, thank you for allowing me to live with you during this research, but more importantly, thank you for helping me understand that the most valuable discoveries are often the ones we do not expect to make. What do you mean? I came to Earth to study how humans create new life. Instead, I learned how to create a new version of myself, one capable of emotional connection and vulnerability. In a way, I suppose I did learn about reproduction after all. Just not the kind I was originally studying. Maya smiled, thinking about how much both of them had changed since that first awkward conversation about human relationships. So what's next for you? Next, I continue learning, Zix said. But not as a researcher studying subjects, as a being discovering what it means to truly connect with others, whatever species they might be. As Maya looked at her alien roommate, now friend, she realized that Zix's journey to understand human reproduction had led them to something even more remarkable. Their own emotional awakening and the discovery that connection transcends the boundaries between species, cultures, and ways of being. I think that sounds like a beautiful way to live, Maya said. Yes, Zix agreed, their eyes bright with possibility. I think it will be.